We're in Second Timothy chapter 2. We started on verse 11. We want to work our way through 11, 12, and 13. So let me replow a little ground with verse 11. Here is a trustworthy saying: if we died with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we disown him, he will also disown us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot disown himself. We talked about if we died with him, we will also live with him. And one of the things that I think is worth going back to is to realize we live with him in the present tense, and we will live with him in the future tense. And by far, the ultimate future is when he returns and he receives us into heaven. That's the ultimate with him, okay? And as we live our lives until that point of time, we have this honor and privilege of him, of that we live with him. Okay. And then if we endure, we will also reign with him. We talked about endurance. Endurance is, I think almost all of us would say that is a value for us, that we're finishers, that we endure. When it gets hard, we lean into it under the grace of Christ and in his power. I believe we want that. I'm not sure, and I'm not judging you, I'm just thinking about me. I'm not sure I can manage to pull that off all the time. My endurance sometimes is pretty small. Well, and we talked about this a little bit too. The idea of enduring has application in almost every aspect, every area of our lives. The easiest one for me to see is athletic endeavor requires endurance. Unless you're like I was when I was sophomore in high school, I was a third string tackling dummy. And basically the endurance factor was, how long are you going to be able to stand here and get smacked around by these bigger guys? Well, I lasted until I got injured, and then I realized I'm not going to get run into by these big guys and injured when I'm in the band. We just play music and march up and down the field, and I could do that. So my football career ended. I've never been a long distance runner, and my excuse is my legs aren't long, and all the good long distance runners have longer legs. This is verifiable, and it is also not an excuse. It's only a reason. I have a client who has been for the last year in training for running the Oklahoma City Marathon. It's pretty amazing to me. He's 61 years old. 2 years ago, he was a couch potato. And so in 2 years, he's going from on the couch to finishing the marathon. It's pretty amazing to me. And I think as amazing to me and inspirational as that is, I'm going to let him do that. But you don't, if you're going to run a marathon, you better have your endurance figured out and addressed. And there are other athletic things that this is also true of. The University of Oklahoma just hired a new head coach who hired a new strength trainer. And one of the reasons is because the team seemed to get fatigued last season in the fourth quarter, and they just didn't have enough in the tank to finish. Well, guess what the strength coach is working on? And guess what the players are kind of whining about? It matters. Okay. What about this, though? What about your relationships? Relationships call for endurance. I think about marriage. Marriages endure because of endurance. Marriages last a lifetime because both the husband and the wife have a commitment to endure for the whole time. Now, I want to be careful. Marriage is not just an endurance match. No. Marriage is one of the greatest gifts God has given me personally, is my marriage and my kids and my grandkids. But we'll celebrate 48 years at the end of May. And there are times when, for Debbie more than me, endurance is called for. And she steps into the task. Nobody who's been married a long time didn't get there without endurance. Raising kids requires endurance. And if you've raised them or are raising them, you know endurance. Walking with Christ and in fellowship with Him. I mean, by fellowship, I just mean we have this deep connection, and that requires endurance, because there are days I don't want to do that. There are days I'm too tired and frustrated, and I can tell you that my ministry career was only 45 years, but that took endurance. I don't think anything of real value in our lives doesn't require endurance. And I think this is a parenting tip. One of the aspects of raising your kids and then being able to release them into a productive and fulfilling life has to do with them developing the skill of endurance. Kids who never have to endure, how in the world are they going to be prepared for an adult life that requires endurance, and a lot of it almost all the time? I would digress and spend another 30 minutes talking about here are some things, but this isn't the time or place. Maybe another time I'll do that. But suffice it to say, endurance is a skill that we acquire. Because really, I don't think we're born with endurance. We're born with a primal urge to survive. Our survival instinct rules, and it never quits ruling for our entire life until our organs fail and we can't do it anymore. I'm not sure that's the same thing as endurance. Let me rephrase that. That's not the same thing. Endurance requires focused, intentional effort over time, consistently. Okay. But he says, if we endure, we will also reign with Him. Now that is a very provocative thought. Anyway, it is for me. And so I've thought a lot about it. How will I reign with Him? Over what will I reign with Him? Just a thought here is Paul never fleshes that out anywhere that I have come across in his letters to churches and individuals. He never says, this is what you will be doing when you reign with Christ. No. Now, I've read some books and heard some speakers talk about how we will reign in a new heaven and a new earth. Well, I'm not going to say I disagree, because here it is in print. We will also reign with Him. I don't know that these people have it all figured out. The best I can do is I look at what John wrote as he did the best he could to describe the new heaven and the new earth. And frankly, he spends much more time describing the new Jerusalem than he does the new earth or the new heaven. But a new heaven and a new earth they are spoken of and written about in the New Testament. So, but what we will reign may be, in my opinion, is less important than how we will reign with him. I think the best I can do, okay? So I'm going to just own it up front. I can't do any better than this on this idea of reigning with him. I will reign in the way that he reigned and reigns. Let's think about how did Jesus and how does Jesus reign? Well, I'm going to say lay aside the omniscience, omnipresence, the omnipotence, that he knows everything. There is endless power. He's present everywhere at all times. Let's set those to the side for a minute. But where did we see him reigning in the Gospels? So just a few things that I notice about how Jesus reigned in the Gospel. And at the top of the list is he reigned with humility. But he rejected Satan's advice and offer to step into history as the biggest and best in an undeniable way, which be hard to imagine that was not a little bit arrogant. He was humble. He was also intensely truthful. And many times telling the truth got him in all kinds of trouble. He was confrontive, but fewer times did he confront the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes and the teachers of the law than they confronted him, and he didn't back down. He stood his ground. Well, okay. Here's one of the big ones. He ruled in mercy, with mercy. He loved people, and he saw their needs. He wasn't put off by their needs. I don't know whether we will have. Here's kind of my dilemma on this whole eternity thing, and what we'll do and what we will reign and all of that. Because one of the things that Jesus did, he performed miracles. A variety of miracles. And one of the kinds of miracles that he performed was healing, even raising people from the dead. I think in the new heaven and the new earth, if I get it right, that'll become unnecessary because there'll no longer be any death, no dying, no sickness. Nothing to heal and nobody to raise from the dead. And yet, why did Jesus do those things? It was his mercy. He was compassionate. Okay, when I think about the nature of how Christ reigned when he was here on earth, I want to treat people that way. Because if I am reigning at all right now, I am only reigning in the sense that I have influence over people in my circle, and I want to influence them the way Jesus did. Okay, if we endure, we will also reign with him. I've demonstrated beyond a doubt I don't really know what that means.